I'm getting that yellow jaundice been going around, I know it. The heebie-jeebies.
It's hepatitis and you don't have it.
Behind every fictional World War II story is some trace of a real event. I recently made a video on the Filthy 13, the U.S. paratrooper company from the 506th, who inspired the cult classic film, The Dirty Dozen. There are many other examples. When Saving Private Ryan was released in 1998, as accurate as it was in portraying the landing scenes at Omaha Beach on June 6, 1944, it was a fictional take on a Ranger unit attempting to evacuate a paratrooper who had lost 3 brothers in combat in a short time. It made for a good story but was about as true as Harry Potter. The inspiration for Saving Private Ryan, however, was based on the story of 4 brothers who indeed fought in World War II, and of which 3 out of the 4 were assumed dead or missing at one time. Matt Damon's character in the movie, Private James Ryan, was based on Frederick Niland, though the stories of the 2 men were not at all similar in reality. Historian and author Stephen Ambrose was the man who had written about the Niland brothers, as have other writers including Cornelius Ryan, who wrote The Longest Day. The legend goes that Spielberg, being a World War II buff himself, had asked Ambrose if he knew of a story he could Hollywoodize around the D-Day landings. Spielberg had always wanted to screenplay the Omaha Beach landing, but that obviously wasn't enough for a 2-hour-plus film. Ambrose pointed to the Niland story. Frederick Fritz Niland, hailing from Tonawanda, New York, served as a sergeant in H Company, 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment. Despite being misdropped below Carrington on D-Day, he managed to fight his way back to reunite with his company alongside his close friend, Jack Breyer. The photograph from 1943, showcased above, was captured by Breyer. Though many writers tend to mix up the details, the core facts of the Niland family's story remain the same. Fritz's 3 brothers, all serving in the U.S. military, and supposedly became casualties within a period of 3 weeks. The eldest brother, Eddie, was aboard an Air Corps bomber that was shot down on May 16, 1944 in the Pacific. Augusta, their mother, received the missing in action telegram on June 8, 1944. Meanwhile, the other 3 sons were actively involved in the Normandy invasion with the Army. Robert, known as Bob the Beast Niland, made his jump near St. Mir-Eglise with Dog Company 505th PIR, 82nd Airborne. Tragically, Bob lost his life while in combat at Nuvio Plain on June 6. Meanwhile, his brother Preston, serving as a lieutenant in the 22nd Infantry Regiment, 4th Division, landed on Utah Beach. Just a day later, on June 7, 1944, Preston also perished in the fighting northwest of Utah Beach. As for Fritz, after dropping away from his unit around June 11, he eventually reunited with H Company 501st PIR. His courage in taking out a German machine gun nest at Hill 30 on June 12 earned him a decoration. Shortly after the invasion of Normandy, Father Sampson, the Catholic chaplain of the 501st PIR, met a young soldier, Fritz Niland, the youngest of 4 brothers serving in World War II. The soldier confided in the chaplain that his older brother had been killed in action during the invasion and that he had also recently experienced the loss of another brother in the Pacific earlier that same week. Fritz had been told that his brother was buried in a nearby Allied cemetery in France, and he asked Father Sampson to drive him to visit the grave. There, they not only found his brother's grave, but were shocked to discover the grave of Niland's 3rd brother, who had also died during the invasion of Normandy. Having just become the last remaining son in his family, Father Sampson arranged for Fritz to be sent home for active duty in the States. Unfortunately, the paperwork for this transfer took a considerable amount of time and wasn't approved until the end of August. Contrary to Stephen Ambrose's claims in his writings, Fritz was not removed from the front lines, but instead, he stayed in Normandy with the 501st until they returned to England after the Normandy campaign. The image above, captured by Fritz's close friend Jack Breyer in Southampton, England in July 1944, depicts the troops disembarking from the LST and boarding buses heading back to their base camp in Lambourne, England. The soldier on the left in the photo is Fritz Niland. Fritz continued serving with H Company throughout the summer of 1944, gearing up for 2 missions that were ultimately cancelled before he received orders to return to the zone of the interior. Despite his protests and desire to avenge his fallen brothers, Fritz was overruled and sent back to New York for military police duty until the end of the war. One of his siblings, indeed, managed to survive. Eddie resurfaced from being missing in action after several months, having spent time in a Japanese prisoner of war camp. It was not true that Mrs. Niland received 3 telegrams in a single day announcing the deaths of her sons. It made for a heart-wrenching part of the movie, at least. So it was actually 2, not 3, of Fritz's brothers who tragically lost their lives in combat. There was also a Niland connection to the famous Easy Company in the 506th. Warren Skip Muck knew the brothers from their mutual hometown of Tonawanda, New York. Before D-Day, Skip, Don Malarkey, Joe Toy, and Chuck Grant met Bob and Fritz in London. Bob Niland had already experienced battle with the 82nd Airborne and provided his fellow paratroopers his views on the realities of combat. After returning home from the war, Fritz Niland did not cure some disease or invent a longer-lasting light bulb. Instead, he became an oral surgeon and innovated new techniques in that field. Like many well-known nonfiction writers, Professor Stephen Ambrose faced various controversies throughout his career, predating the plagiarism scandal that emerged in early 2002. His shortcomings have been mentioned on many of my videos. I do, however, reflect on the significant role he played in bringing awareness of World War II to readers worldwide. While other historians work to fill the void left by Ambrose, it's unlikely that anyone will achieve the same level of acclaim that he enjoyed during the 80s and 90s. The media and publishing industry hailed him as an icon. With great fame and reputation comes the important responsibility of accurately conveying the story to the audience. Ambrose, in his writings about various military units, faced criticism for inaccuracies from the men themselves. Despite requests for corrections, Ambrose seemed reluctant to rectify these mistakes in subsequent editions of his work. While all historians make errors, including myself as an amateur historian, his failure to admit and fix these errors did not endear him to veterans or fellow history writers. Many believe that someone of his stature should not have made such obvious mistakes. It was also felt that with a team of knowledgeable proofreaders, such glaring errors should have been caught before publication. He wasn't alone, however. We have seen the same glaring inaccuracies make their way into the Band of Brothers series, which was also based on a book written by Stephen Ambrose. The writers of that series are guilty of the same untruths. Tom Hanks was and probably is Ambrose's biggest fan. And why not after the success of Band of Brothers? Hanks had also bought the rights for the book prior to the series being made. He may have caught the bug from Dick Winters, who likely used Ambrose to rewrite history. I know for a fact that Ambrose in his many books was pressured to change history due to veterans protecting the reputation of their fellow company members. So Hanks may have exaggerated somewhat when he labeled Ambrose as the greatest historian of the 20th century. It was perhaps more of a marketing statement, but that is speculation on my part. Despite any criticisms that may be leveled against Stephen Ambrose, his work, and the movie Saving Private Ryan, played a significant role in sparking renewed interest in World War II.